Good evening. What's your name? I didn't ask you your name. Purna. Purna. Complete. Purna means complete. Come in the front, don't sit so much. Don't stay with people. That's it. Girls generally sit low. And we are opposite separately after I teach and give you all some assistance. Today, which chapter 1 minute I'll tell you. Huh? Happy Prince in behind. Behind. It's in behind. Truly beautiful mind, we did Snake and the Mirror, we did The Legend of Northland. My childhood, APJ Abdul Kalam. Huh? So best. Up today, I haven't even got that. I have planned to do this and the next poem. Happy Prince. It will come in your later no exam. Huh? It's in home. So next class we can take that up then. When is your exam now? Hello. She's new, her name is Purna. Yes. You all know? Who? You. See, I know her as Buddy. Not in the same class. Good. Huh? You were her partner, you would have had a lot to talk. Not to talk, to listen. हाँ वही तो मतलब पार्टनर बात करती है मतलब सिर्फ पार्टनर ही है ना तेरे को बात करने के लिए पर एक टाइम पे तो पूरे बट मोर विथ योर पार्टनर नो है ना
पार्टनर इरिटेट करती है अपनी लाइफ में चेंज कर दिया
What is your next? What were you saying for which exam? When is that exam? Huh?
After exam.
When is that?
September
30. So as per that,
September English.
So as per that, listen, as per your half-yearly syllabus, what is left to be done?
Happy Prince.
My childhood is coming. So today we are doing that only. See, they have my childhood.
श्योर नहीं है कि अगर पढ़ के नहीं हुआ तो नहीं होगा
तो हम अपना पढ़ा के रखेंगे हम अपना पढ़ के रखेंगे हम नहीं सोचेंगे if the teacher teach even teacher the last minute and says in the syllabus so why wait for that no sabne kiya sign so tell me other than Happy Prince what else
और my childhood और ये आने वाला नहीं है तो मेरे से
उसके हिसाब से तो everything was done what you showed me so as per hers because it shouldn't happen at the last minute अरे ये था मगर ये किया नहीं so let's do those first I love Ines. हाँ, Isle. What do you island? What you said? इसलिए? इसलिए? Not इसलिए. I. Okay. So as per that, anything that is left? नहीं ना?
But comprehension 2 है for 20 marks के लिए grammar के लिए subject word concord tenses we had been fun they had road not taken sound of music wind little girl rain on roof beautiful mind great pile of history snake and the mirror legend of Northland my childhood
there. See.
it is not short now
Okay.
आज ही बताया
Okay.
और फिर moments में lost child adventures of Toto each one storyteller kingdom of fools और happy friends
Happy.
writing skills में descriptive writing storytelling और directing की वजह से कुछ तो है
So we have done everything except
3 chapters
which 3?
my childhood
2 ना?
happy friends
Prince. वो statue रहता है Prince का.
actually
Sanmitra.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tell me, as per your forthcoming school exams, is there anything that is not done? That's
No,
what I
ma'am.
was speaking with them. So
No, ma'am.
everything is done as per
Yes. Yes.
In last week, you had test no English.
Yeah.
Had? क्यों? कब देगी फिर? गणपति के shopping. You keep Ganpati in your house. So when are you going to give? When are you going to give that exam, that test? And how did y'all write? Good. Paper, you've not got it. Made a mistake there. MCQ. Chalo, so let's do my childhood. Where are the boys today? पिंक से ज्यादा वो लोग मस्ती और टाइम पास करेंगे. They won't want. So Sanmitra, my childhood, page 68.
Okay, ma'am.
And but start. My childhood. This is about APJ Abdul Kalam. So, can you think of any scientists who have been statesmen? Do you know anyone? Like a part of the political scenario.
yes
Albert Einstein. He was a scientist and yes, he did something to make peace. कोणत्या क्लास आहे? काय 9, 10? 9 CP, 9 CP, 9 SC. म्हणजे खारघर मध्ये जे पण माझे क्लासेस आहेत. Zuhan,
So they put that class.
one, 11. Okay. Okay, girls. APJ Abdul Kalam, whose projects in space, defense, and nuclear technology guided India to the 21st century, became our 11th president in 2002. In his autobiography, Wings of Fire, he speaks of his childhood. So this, तुम लोग की books किधर है? Why? You know, I'm being very lenient with you all. I'm being very nice to you all. You know something? वाशी में अगर कोई ऐसे करता है ना, मैं उनको I make them sit separately. If you haven't got a book, you sit without the book, so you realize it, and next time they bring the book. तो खरीद फिर. Boom हो जाता means what? Your dog ate it up. चल ठीक है, next week. Now don't talk, okay? Next week see that you have got. You are good. So, I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameshwaram. Rameshwaram is in South India. So he was born in a Tamil family in the island. It's an island, Rameshwaram, in erstwhile Madras state. Erstwhile is, see there is written former. My father, underline all those words, okay? So here underline middle class Tamil family, island town, Rameshwaram. Why 8? Traffic, so leave 10 minutes early, no, instead of being 10 minutes late. अगली बार time पे आना, okay? Textbook लाया? Yes. Oh. So my father, Jainul Abdin, had neither much formal education nor much wealth. Okay, so his father was not much educated. Nor did he have too much wealth. Whom are we talking about? His father. Despite these disadvantages, he possessed great innate wisdom and true generosity of spirit. Innate. What is the meaning of innate? Inborn. Mark in the textbook, underline those words. The meaning is written, but you could underline it while it's being read. So he possessed great innate wisdom and a true generosity of spirit. Means he was a very generous person. A generous person is someone who is very giving. He had an ideal helpmate in my mother, Ashiyama. I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day, but I'm quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our own family put together. So which means what they used to do, they used to feed others. So there were more people that they fed more than the number of members in their family. So this was the generosity of spirit. I was one of many children, a short boy with rather undistinguished looks. Underline undistinguished, common. So he didn't have exceptional looks. He had quite undistinguished common looks. Pencil. Why no pouch? Go there, take my pouch. Give it. एक पाउच रखने को नहीं होता. Go get it. हाँ? इसलिए खरीद के लाओ एक पाउच with all full of stationery. हाँ? पाउच है पर मतलब नहीं है ना, है पर लाया नहीं मतलब. If you are absent, will I say, ah, he's there, but he's not come. Absent, it's absent. It's not there. So he was a short boy with rather undistinguished looks, born to tall and handsome parents. We lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. Ancestral? Hmm? Yes, in English, belonging to the previous generations. We lived in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. It was a fairly large pakka house made of limestone and brick on the Mosque Street. Where was the house? Mosque Street in Rameshwaram. My austere father, austere, underline, simple, strict, and severe. My austere father used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. Means what? You should have, even if you have money, you should have a simple living. Because if you talk about luxuries, you start getting habituated to them. Then ultimately you cannot live without them. So how was his father? He used to avoid those luxuries and comforts which were not really essential. What is essential are our needs. However, all necessities were provided for. Necessities same as needs. All the zaruri things without which you cannot do. So all necessary things were provided for in terms of food, medicine, or clothes. So basic things they got. All their needs were satisfied. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood, both एक minute, two to the same. You shift in, you shift first. So on Mosque Street in Rameshwaram, my austere father used to avoid inessential comforts and luxuries. However, necessities were provided for in terms of food, medicines, or clothes. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood, both materially and emotionally. Materially, we mean all the materialistic things, requirements, and emotionally in terms of the love and affection and family support that he got. Any doubts? Read it. Read the page on your own and see if there is any. Sanmitra, read the page and see if there is anything. Any doubts?
Okay, ma'am.
Erstwhile. See where on the side it's written former. So underline those words which you find difficult. Generosity of spirit is being generous, means being very giving. You're not selfish. Like we did last time, that story, Legend of Northland. So the lady was not generous. She was stingy. She was not generous. Done? Pad liya? Okay. Next page. The Second World War broke out in 1939 when I was 8 years old, which means which year was he born in? Which year? 1931. He was born on 15th October 1931. So the Second World War broke out in 1939 when I was 8 years old. For reasons I have never been able to understand, a sudden demand for tamarind seeds erupted in the market. Tamarind means imli. So demand for those seeds. I used to collect the seeds and sell them to a provision shop on Mosque Street. So what he used to do? He used to collect and he used to sell it in one shop over there. Now, the reason why these tamarind seeds had the need for that had increased is because during those days, they had started drying those seeds, roasting it, making it into powder and using it for manufacturing cloth. Okay, it was used for manufacturing. I think it's sometimes, those kind of materials which make something waterproof. So like even it's used in paper also, not tamarind, but the same kind of chemical. During those days, that chemical wasn't discovered. Like if you put some drops of water, it's not going to get absorbed, right? You do this, it'll fall off. So that had started being used, these tamarind seeds for making cloth. इसके लिए उसका demand बढ़ गया. Okay. So, but he was a child, so he didn't know at that time why it is increased in demand. So that's why he says, I have never been able to understand. Then I used to collect the seeds and sell them to a provision shop on Mosque. Provision shop means the kirana ka shop. That's a provision shop. A day's collection would fetch me the princely sum of 1 anna. Princely means? Yes, a high amount of 1 anna. During those days, even 1 anna was a lot. 1 anna is how much? 16 annas is 1 rupee. 8 anna we say, but 50 paise is called 8 anna, just 8 annas. So 4 anna is 25 paise. Now 25 paise also have disappeared. But you had 25 paise, which was 4 anna. And this year he's talking about 1 anna. So he used to get 1 anna per day. What you have? Small round ones. Yeah, thin, and the material also used to be different. They were not of steel like the current coins. So there was 10 paise also during those days. There was a 10 paise coin, there was a 5 paise coin. 5 paise was square in shape with rounded edges. And 10 paise was like this with wavy edges, round, but flat type. Okay. So a day's collection would fetch me a princely sum of 1 anna. My brother-in-law, Jalaluddin, would tell me stories about the war which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines in Dinamani. So what is Dinamani? The newspaper. It would have been the daily newspaper. So he used to tell him some background about it, and then he used to read the newspaper and find out more information about it. Our area, being isolated, was completely unaffected by the war. Isolated means, yes, separated. You isolate yourself. So which means what? You are separating yourself. So this area where they lived was isolated. So it was not affected much by the war. But soon, India was forced to join the Allied forces. See over there. The armies of UK, USA, and Russia during the Second World War. So India was asked to join the Allied forces. And something like a state of emergency was declared. The first casualty came in the form of, here casualty means the effect of India participating, like the result, first thing that happened. The first casualty came in the form of suspension of the train halt at Rameshwaram station. Suspension means now the train would not stop at Rameshwaram station. Suspension, cancellation you can say. Okay. The newspapers now had to be bundled and thrown out of the moving train on Rameshwaram road between Rameshwaram and Dalsukodi. Okay, so he used to distribute newspapers, his brother-in-law. So maybe they must be getting that bulk by the train when the train used to stop at Rameshwaram. But now it's not going to stop. So then the newspapers had to be thrown at some, they must be bundling it and they must be throwing it at some particular location. So what was that location? Rameshwaram Road between Rameshwaram and Dansukodi, another place. That forced my cousin Samsuddin, who distributed newspapers in Rameshwaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles, and as if naturally, I filled the slot. I filled the slot means he needed somebody to help him with his work to get those bundles, to catch those bundles. So I filled that slot means I was ideal for that job. I filled the slot. Samsuddin helped me earn my first wages. Half a century later, half a century is how many years? 1 century, 50 years. 1 century is 100. Right? Cricket में क्या बोलते हैं? एक century मारा means how many runs? 100. So half a century is 50. So half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. So he feels proud that he could earn his own money. Wouldn't you feel proud if you earn your own money? You will do that, but not now. Then, every child is born with some inherited characteristics. Inherited means taken over from your parents or your previous generations. It could be your grandparents. Whatever. So every child is born with some inherited characteristics into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment. Socio-economic is based on society and the economy. Economy means based on money, finances, and trained in certain ways by figures of authority. Figures of authority would imply initially your parents or your teachers or anyone who is guiding you. Those are figures of authority. I inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father. So what did he inherit from his father? Honesty, underline, keep marking. Honesty and self-discipline from his father. And from my mother, I inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness, and so did my 3 brothers and sister. So how many brothers did he have? And sister? One. What did he inherit from his mother? Deep kindness and faith in goodness. So he learned all these, he inherited all these good qualities from his parents. And so did his siblings. I had three close friends in my childhood. Ramanatha Shastri, underline, Aravindan, and Siva Prakasan. What were their names? Ramanatha Shastri, Aravindan, and Siva Prakasan. All these boys were from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. Orthodox means traditional. Their thinking is orthodox. Their beliefs are orthodox. It's not open. So they were from Hindu Brahmin families. As children, none of us ever felt any difference amongst ourselves because of our religious differences and upbringing. In fact, Ramanatha Shastri was the son of Pakshi Lakshmana Shastri, the highest priest of Rameshwaran temple. Okay, so APJ was of what religion? He was a Muslim, but they didn't have any kind of differences amongst their friends. In fact, what did he say? This Ramanatha Shastri was whose son? Yeah, he was a son of the high priest at Rameshwaran temple. Later, he took over the priesthood of the Rameshwaran temple from his father. Okay, so later Ramanatha became the priest over there. Aravindan went into the business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims, and Siva Prakasan became a catering contractor for the Southern Railways. Catering contractor means catering is supplying food. You have these railways where they'll give you meals, no? So he took up that kind of a contract. Who was that? Shiva Prakashan. What did Aravindan do? Business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims. Pilgrims kaun rehte hain? Yes, the tourist pilgrims are more like who are going to some religious place. So वहाँ पे temples रहते. So then people who want to travel, he used to arrange for transport. Read this one page now. And then if you have any doubts, ask. What was? Pilgrims are the people going to visit temples. Sanmitra, read it and ask if there are any doubts, huh?
Okay, ma'am.
From the Second World War till Southern Railways. And keep underlining the important points. Because of the war going on, so they would have kept lesser number of stations. They wouldn't want so many people coming and going. So people have to be indoors. There shouldn't be a crowd over there. The war was on. So if it's a station, there are going to be more people. Then what if that place is attacked? So that could be a reason where Rameshwaram being an important station, that was suspended. Read what you're shading over there. Read. Done reading? What do you read? So tell in short what you read. What you're reading now? You're telling or what? Attend. That we can hear. ये इतना बात करती है तब हाँ बड़े बड़े अच्छा which नाम रामेश्वरम which other हाँ who was Samsuddin who was Samsuddin see where his name appears who was Samsuddin what town see read na अरे वो 9 words that forced my cousin Samsuddin no so like Rameswaram like that Samsuddin but you read the sentence that's why I was telling you all read it what is it written that forced my cousin so Samsuddin is a place you only see those words what Rameswaram and no Rameshwaram okay any doubts with this yeah what फिर ठीक है do that but then I might interrupt in between I haven't explained हाँ चलेगा but if the para is long then we won't have a this no 1 point okay fifth sixth is small sixth is a little big so I'll interrupt in case that happens so let's have Sanmitra read first our only online guy fifth
Yes, ma'am. During the annual Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying idols of the Lord from the temple to the marriage site, situated in the middle of pond called Rama Tirtha, which was near our house. Events from the Ramayana and from the life of Prophet were the bedtime stories my mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family.
So what did he say in this? See here, Lola talk. So during the annual Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange what? For what purpose? For the ceremony. And why? For carrying idols of the Lord from the temple to the marriage site. So this was, which means some kind of marriage ceremonies that must be being held. Site, S-I-T-E, site means that place where the marriages are going to take place. Where was it? Rama Tirtha. And what was Rama Tirtha? It was a pond which was near the house. Events from the Ramayana and the life of the prophet were the bedtime stories my mother and grandmother would tell the children in our family. Then one day you leave. One day.
One day when I was in the first standard at the
Are you able to hear Sanmitra?
Yes, ma'am.
We all will have to be louder if you all want to read. Sanmitra should be able to hear. Bas. Sanmitra should be able to hear. Nahi sunai dega, then your reading is cancelled. To use all your energies and read out. Both of you all. इसको चाहिए तभी जोर से पढ़ लेती है, ये इसका आवाज कम निकल. So be loud. Yes, during the annual. Oh, sorry. One day.
One day when I was in first standard at the National Elementary School, a new teacher came to our class. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim, and I always sat in the front row next to
Ramanatha Shastri.
Shastri who wrote the
Sacred thread. Sacred thread is what? The holy thread, the janyo that the boys wear.
teacher could not support the Hindu price.
Priests.
Son, sitting with a Muslim boy. In accordance with our social ranking, as the new teacher saw it, I was asked to go and sit on the back bench. I felt very sad and so big on
Ramanatha Shastri.
Shastri looked
Utterly downcast.
downcast as I shifted my seat in the last row. The image of him waiting when I shifted to the last row left a lasting impression on me.
So what happened one day when he was in the 5th standard? Thank you. Yeah, and that happens even now, you know, in, I don't know the place that this happened, but there was this one student who was from in some village only, not in a city. He was a Dalit, okay, and Dalits are generally supposed to be lower class. So he drank water from the pot of the teacher, who was of a higher class. So that teacher got very angry and he beat up the child and the child was hospitalized. So that why did you are a Dalit? So probably if some other child would have had, he wouldn't have that. So these things take place even today. So what did the teacher do? The teacher put APJ at the back, and that had a lasting impression on him. Okay, so and how did he identify? How did the teacher identify that he was a Muslim? From the cap. And how did he identify Ramanatha Shastri? He was wearing the sacred thread, not sacred thread. And could not stomach means could not bear, could not tolerate. Could not tolerate, see it's written over there. So could not tolerate that how next to a priest's son there is this Muslim boy sitting. Utterly downcast. He looked utterly downcast. He looked very sad, depressed. Left a deep lasting impression. Left a lasting impression means there will be certain incidences in the past that have happened with you, which you remember even now, something good or something bad. So that is a lasting, long time impression in my mind. Take your break. It's 5:15, no? So take your break, then we continue. Seventh one onwards. So we go like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Take a break, Sanmitra. Some other classrooms, she doesn't come over. The one who broke the one. It's my roommate, Rohan. Comes to the other one. Putting in building.